Test is about to begin. Did you harm any of those boys found at Robin Hood Hills?
No.
Novus Ordo Seclorum, included in the Great Seal of the United States, and then placed on the back of the dollar bill in 1935 by President Franklin Roosevelt and his then Vice President Henry Wallace. Roosevelt had changed the order of the two. The front, which is the seal with the eagle on it, was supposed to be on the left-hand side of the back of the dollar bill, and the all-seeing pyramid on the right. Roosevelt reversed it to make it appear as though the all-seeing pyramid was the more important symbol of the two, even though it's never been used on a document, an official U.S. government document. According to the adepts, it will take a more definite recognition of the grand architect of the universe, that's a Freemasonic reference to their concept of God, before the apex stone, the capstone of the pyramid, is finally fitted into place, and this nation, in the full strength of its power, is in position to assume leadership among the nations in inaugurating the new order of the ages. That's why that was placed on the back of the dollar bill. They believe it symbolizes America taking its rightful place atop the pyramid as we inaugurate this new golden age. And with this golden age returns the reign of old Saturn, whose image by this point had been kind of rehabilitated. Yeah, he was the same as the god Kronos in Greece, whose epithet or nickname was Technophagos, which means child eater. But for whatever reason, the Romans believed that he had presided over a golden age when life was easy. In fact, the Temple of Saturn housed the treasury with all the gold for Rome.
You know, the thing is, what people need to understand is that the occult is a massive dimension, if I can put it that way. So many parts of the Old Testament, the Lord is warning the people and telling them, listen, don't do sorcery, don't get into witchcraft, don't do any of these things, don't do necromancy or whatever. If you want to put it on a scale, it's like the average human being has an IQ of 100, 110. If you compare it to a supernatural being like an angel, a demon, a principality, or so on, they have an IQ of at least 1,000. They have knowledge about things of the cosmos, the seasons, things about how you can manipulate matter and energy and so on. We as human beings get hold of that knowledge. We will basically destroy ourselves, we will destroy the world.
Have you had any other problems with the police?
Omission is the biggest form of lie. That is George Orwell. So there's a lot omitted. I think that their interest was really to make something captivating and not really to document. So the term documentary probably is not accurate in the application to those three films.
The murders of 3 West Memphis boys last year shocked all of Region 8. During the trials earlier this year, we empathized with the parents and relatives of those little boys.
And because of television, we were able to see and hear the emotions those parents were going through. Now the parents of one of the boys find themselves once again under public scrutiny. Jenna?
Since the trials, the Byers moved from West Memphis to Cherokee Village. Now they say they wanted to start a new life, but now they face criminal charges. They're accused of taking $20,000 worth of property from a neighbor's house. Police have witnesses who claim they saw the Byers loading stolen items into their pickup truck, and when police searched the Byers' house, they found a few of them. Mark and Melissa Byers face additional charges in their old hometown. West Memphis police have 13 warrants for the Byers for allegedly writing over $700 in bad checks. The Byers also face other charges. When they moved to Cherokee Village, the Byers became good friends with their neighbors, John and Donna Kingsbury. Problems began when Mark spanked the Kingsbury's 5-year-old.
I took the fly swatter and I just the plastic end, just on the back of his blue jeans. And I said, now you get home, you've been a bad boy.
But the Kingsburys say the whipping bruised their son.
We did have to have a restraining order put on them because I was worried about my family.
Mark Byers' problems began in July. He's been charged with contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Police say he stood by holding a gun and allowed a teenaged friend to assault John Shaver Jr. According to a police report, the teenager used a closed pocket knife in his fist to assault Shaver. The fight sent Shaver to the hospital with a concussion. Byers admits the knife was his. He also admits there was a gun in his car. The Shavers say Byers used the gun to prevent bystanders from stopping the fight.
I think I'd be extremely...
Shaver's father believes this raises serious questions about Byers.
There's a lot of people that's talked to me about it, which I hate to say it, but they think maybe he might have had something to do with those murders.
Mark Byers says that's ridiculous. But these charges and the questions they dredge up may stick with this family forever.
Have you had any other problems with the police?
Not major, no, sir.
You've had problems? Is that what you're saying? I don't know.
Oh, well, speeding tickets. I got a DWI one time after my wife was murdered.
As I said, I'm not quite done with Byers yet. There's definitely more than just a little something off about him. But is he the kind of guy that would kill 3 kids and then walk around doing all the crazy stuff that he's been doing in the Paradise Lost documentaries? The directors making the HBO films finally get Byers to sit down for a polygraph test, but he didn't want them in the room. So they set up a camera and waited outside as a respected polygraph expert takes John Mark Byers through the test.
Test is about to begin. Is this the month of October?
Yes.
Regarding those deaths, do you intend to answer truthfully each question about that?
Yes.
Other than what we've talked about, did you ever wish any person would die?
No.
Did you harm any of those boys?
No.
Other than what we've talked about, did you ever think about hurting anyone?
No.
Did you harm any of those boys found at Robin Hood Hills?
No.
Test is over. Remain seated, looking straight ahead.
Thy rod and thy staff comfort me. And I thank you, Lord, for letting me be able to believe in that with all my heart. I hope y'all really believe in your master, the Satan, Sleuthfoot, devil himself, because he's not going to help you. He's going to laugh at you, mock at you, and torture you. He didn't need your help. The devil's got all the devils he needs. The good Lord said Lucifer and a third of the angels were cast from heaven. He didn't need them, but he took their mind and he manipulated them. And they prayed to Satan and they prayed to the devil and they had their satanic worship service.
Mark, you feeling better? You got that arm straightened out and had that smoke.
Workable.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you, sir.
I don't, according to what we have here, the response is on the chart. I feel you're telling the truth about the issues we worked with as far as you see them. As you see them.
Give me a high five. Thank you. I knew it was right. I knew I was innocent. And to all of you morons, fools, and idiots that thought I had anything to do with it, I am now vindicated. Maybe this will serve a point to some of y'all. And I feel sorry, my heart goes out to the victims who have to be put through things such as this.
Now remember, polygraph tests cannot be submitted in evidence in court, but Byers had already been investigated and exonerated by police several times. So now, hopefully, in the eyes of the filmmakers and the Free the West Memphis 3 support group and the public, John is no longer a suspect. Now, if Damien and company truly are innocent and Byers didn't do it, then who did? So at this point in my research, I'm leaning towards thinking the boys are innocent. So now I'm going through all the evidence that you could find online about the court case. And what I found was quite shocking because the filmmakers left a lot of important details out of their documentaries.
There's a very good statement by a psychiatrist by the name of Woods. That was an affidavit that was put together for his appeals in 2001. Woods took all the information that had been available and went through over it and verified everything. So he said that he was actively psychotic, which is a psychological term for somebody who is detached from reality, and made statements of Eccles literally being in a jail cell trying to move the bricks so he could go into another world. And I mean, there's other statements in there where he said, I'm taking Kool-Aid so I can power my body, so I can grow another arm. And there's just other things. And even some of his post-release, I mean, he was released in 2011. There's some things that are very curious where, like, he's talking about drinking moon water and where he's talking about making New York to be in a giant energy antenna. So his belief system may be impacted a lot by his psychiatric diagnoses.
The second Paradise Lost documentary, Revelations, took place around an appeal process for the convicted killers. During the process, the defense hired a psychiatrist to evaluate the mental state of Eccles. They were trying to determine if his mental illness affected his competency to stand trial. The defense was trying to make it look like the antidepressants that Eccles was taking between 92 and 93 actually played a part in his manic episodes, creating what they would call a psychotic euphoria that included hallucinations and delusions that deities were transforming him into a superior being. Dr. Woods concluded that prior to and during the trial that Damien heard voices, and he wasn't sure if they were real or if they were just coming from his head. He was also experiencing visual hallucinations that were personifications of others. Damien said that they were like smoke, changing shape, but present and consistent. The personifications had specific names and activities. One was Morpheus Sandman, who was a hybrid of a human being and a god. Another example was Washington crossing the Delaware. Dr. Woods writes in his affidavit to the court that Mr. Eccles saw Washington cross the Delaware with Hermes on the boat. Hermes was able to cross with Washington because Hermes was moving backwards through time.
I kind of enjoy it because now, even after I die, people are going to remember me forever. They're going to talk about me for years. People in West Memphis will tell their kids stories. It'll be like, sort of like I'm the West Memphis boogeyman.
Damien also stated that at some point during his adolescence, he became to believe that he was something that was almost a supreme deity that came from a place other people didn't come from. This transformation caused him to change physically. The changes appeared to take place in his hands, feet, and hair. He acquired an entirely different bone structure that was not human. Damien also believed that he was developing stronger senses, that his eyesight was better, and his ability to smell and taste changed as well. He grew his nails so that they would be a perfect 1.5 inches long. And when he would look at his hands, he could see the bones. Now, Dr. Woods concluded that all of this was consistent with neurovegetative signs seen in people with mood disorders. This period of physical change began the year before the arrest and lasted for about 2 years after he went on death row. Damien Eccles' lifelong struggle with mental illness took several violent turns in the year leading up to his arrest.
I don't think that Berlinger and Sinofsky kept the objective kind of view that you would have if you were doing an honest job of looking at a case. They involved themselves. They've hung out with their supporters. When I first looked at the West Memphis 3, I really started looking once they got released in 2011. Once I realized Crowley was involved, that's really what set me off of looking in. But there was a lot of scratching. Why are all these people acting in unison? Why are all these people from Los Angeles or Hollywood supporting them? And you don't know who these people are, but then you start looking in their backgrounds and you see their fellow travelers. But what I learned from people on site is this documentary, like, they were getting paid. There were actual negotiated agreements between family members and HBO for payments. So $500,000 here and there. And so a lot of these stuff, like you see John Mark Byers, who's passed away, grandstanding and shooting, he was getting paid for that. So he was kind of not being this kind of distant person. And the people who really are acting honest, they never really talked to. So you'll see Byers there, but they never sat down and had a kind of sober conversation with Moore, Branch's actual real father, and Terry Hobbs. So they just insinuated a lot of the stuff. When you realize that background, that the whole environment was tainted with payments and these guys are getting paid like actors, it's a real problem.
So as far as the entire West Memphis 3 saga is concerned, if you only watched the documentaries that HBO produced and you never looked at any of the evidence, you probably would conclude that the boys were targeted and were prejudged because they wore black, specifically Damien Eccles. Because the filmmakers really do lead you to believe that they didn't investigate anybody else, but they did. On May 7th, 1993, only one day after the boys were discovered in Robin Hood Hills, an investigating officer named Diane Hester was doing door-to-door interviews with people who lived near the crime scene, and she writes this very interesting report. Upon conducting house-to-house interviews, I knocked on the door of 1401 Goodwin. The door was opened by a white male, late teens to early mid-20s, approximately 5'6" to 5'7", a slim build with shoulder-length reddish brown hair, wearing jeans and no shirt. I told him who I was and that we were just checking with the neighborhood to see if anyone saw anyone or anything unusual before or since the homicides. As soon as he opened the door and saw that I was a police officer, he immediately put his right arm behind the door as if to purposely keep me from seeing it. So I explained it again that I only needed his name for my records, and I asked again. Again, he asked why and would not tell me. I asked about 3 or 4 times before a black male with long corn-rolled hair appeared. He came up behind the white male and said, "David Beasley." His name is David Beasley, in a very agitated voice. The white male stated that he had just moved here a few days prior and was from Los Angeles. I also observed what appeared to be about a 4-inch fresh scratch mark on the white male's chest. The investigating officer, Diane Hester, now goes to a neighbor and asks about these suspicious young guys. And she writes this: I then spoke with a neighbor of theirs, Deborah Oettinger, and asked if she knew anything about these guys. She stated that they had just moved in on Sunday, the 2nd of May, and seemed to be very strange. She stated that they always seemed to leave together, with the white male always opening the door for the black male. She further states that the black male is almost always dressed in black and wore a black robe with some sort of white cross or other sign on it. The neighbor also reports seeing the white male wearing a silver chain with a star or a star circle cross on it. The white male was known as King David Beasley, and the black male was known as Sir Michael Williams. In the investigation report, the police note that there was a scorpion necklace that was purchased at a local store by David for Sir Michael. Eventually, police discovered that these 2 individuals were attending a church revival on May the 5th starting at 8:30. As suspicious and weird as these 2 guys are, police exonerate them. The night that the boys went missing, the manager of a fast food restaurant called the police, reporting that a black male with a cast on his right arm entered the restaurant and headed to the woman's restroom. He appeared to have blood on him and was muddy. A police officer showed up to the scene but never even took a report. The next day, Detective Ridge showed up, took blood samples left behind from the black male. He then states in court that he lost those samples. So about a week and a half after the murders, a robbery took place nearby, and the suspect fits the description of Mr. Bojangles. The robbery suspect's name was Michael Scott. Apparently, he asked someone for change for a $100 bill, and then when change was given, he rolls up the window of his truck and then begins to drag the victim. And the very interesting part is that Michael Scott has a tattoo of a scorpion on his chest. Remember the necklace that was purchased by the other 2 suspicious guys? Eventually, Michael Scott is ruled out as a suspect. Apparently, the cast was very different than the one that the manager of the Bojangles describes. Nevertheless, some of the connections are very strange. The point is that police did have other leads and thoroughly investigated them.
It really is kind of encapsulates our modern media environment or topography or landscape, the West Memphis Threes. How many different elements, why people keep things out. This is kind of the way that we have, when we look at these things, it's just a modern person in this high-tech, media-saturated, information-saturated age. How can you really tell what really is the truth? And in this particular case, this court case, there's enough records, evidentiary records, to let you know the truth.
So while I'm going through all of this evidence, I found something else that was even bigger than Damien's mental state.
If you want to go back to the exact things that they left out any mention of Jesse's post-conviction confessions, of which they are recorded. Those are not in the films.
This is huge. Why wouldn't the filmmakers bring up the fact that Jesse Misskelley has on record a post-conviction confession that is way more detailed than the first one that maybe was coerced, or at least it seemed like it was coerced? I was able to obtain a recording of Jesse Misskelley's other confession, which is also known as the Bible confession, as he said he wanted to confess on the Bible.
I'm advising you that I don't think it's a good idea for you to give this statement. You understand that? Yes, I do. So you understand that my advice to you is that you not say anything. You understand that? Yes. And you're 18 years old, and you understand that I've asked for a mental evaluation? I don't know if you did or not. I asked the court if I could have an opportunity to get you the psychiatric help that you asked for when I was down in Pine Bluff on Tuesday. You remember asking for that? Yes, I do. You asked me to get you a psychiatrist? Yeah, I need help. Okay. And that's why I asked the judge for an opportunity to get you that evaluation before you made any statement. You understand that? Yes. And you also understand that, again, it's my advice that you not talk or give any kind of statement here tonight until we have a chance to file a motion for new trial and get you the evaluations completed. Do you understand that? Yes, I do. And it's your decision to go ahead and make a statement anyway? Yes. So you still want to give a statement despite my advice and counsel? Yes, because I want something done about it. Okay. So, is there any part of what I just told you that you don't understand? No. You understand everything? Yeah. You want to make this statement regardless of my advice that he's doing so? Yeah. You realize that once you make this statement, there's no turning back. I know there's no turning back.
Well, I was telling them, I don't know nothing about it, and they just kept on egging it on. Finally, I just said something where they'd just leave me alone. And finally, I told them, I chased them and everything and caught them and brought them back. But none of that happened.
Are you aware of any personality traits of people who are likely to falsely confess?
Low IQ, highly suggestible, always attempting to solve the immediate stress factor, get the interrogators off my back and just let me go home, naively assumes that they can all straighten it out later on. It's extremely difficult for the average person to believe that someone would confess to a crime they didn't do. What I didn't like about this confession is that most of it emanated from questions right off the bat.
You realize that once you make the statement, there's no turning back. I know there's no turning back.
What I didn't like about this confession is that most of it emanated from questions right off the bat.
I've jokingly said to Lori before that I think in a lot of ways I may have brought this on myself, this entire situation, because when I was a child, I knew what my passion was, I knew what my drive was, I knew what my desire was. I loved magic. And I would say to myself, these names that people think of, I would say, one day my name is going to eclipse all of them. I'm going to be the greatest magician there's ever been. And I had no idea that that meant I would have 20 years to sit alone in a prison cell and practice and study.
We're not trash, by no means. My son was born in West Memphis. He was raised in West Memphis. And for the life of me, I cannot understand why people has got this bad image of him. So what if he wore a black trench coat? He's not the only one that does. So what if he wore black t-shirts, black pants? Johnny Cash wears black, doesn't he?
Well, I wear black. Michelle wears black. Dominique wears black. We're all just partial to black, I guess.
I like black myself. And I'm by no means no devil worshiper, nor is he.
he was going to school. He wanted to go to school to be a priest. He was faithful in the church, and he looked into a little bit of Wicca, but he never went to it.
Because when I was a child, I knew what my passion was, I knew what my drive was, I knew what my desire was. I loved magic.
It appears satanic worship may have played a role in the murders. Since the very beginning of the investigation, people all around West Memphis have come forward with stories of satanic cults.
Reverend Tommy Stacy's church is down the street from where the bodies were found. 1 year ago, Damian Eccles told the church's youth minister he had a pact with the devil and he was going to hell.
I do know that my youth director talked to Damien extensively after revival that we had, and he told him that he could not be saved, that he could not give his heart to Jesus. And my youth director then tried to get him to take a Bible, and he made the statement that he could not take a Bible because if he did, the rest of them would get him.
In West Memphis, Jenna Newton, KIT 8 Night News.
Margaret, 2 teenage girls took the stand this morning, and they said they heard Damian Eccles confess to the murders of 3 8-year-old boys last May. One of the girls said she overheard Damian Eccles say, "I killed the 3 boys, and I'm going to kill 2 more. I already have 1 picked out." Later in the afternoon, when the defense began presenting its witnesses, Damian Eccles himself took the stand. He said he thought the girls were lying and that they were making up those statements. He also said he did not practice Satanism and denied any involvement in the murders of Chris Byers, Michael Moore, and Stevie Branch.
Well, the biggest thing with the Memphis 3 trial is this was post-Satanic Panic era. So once a new case emerged that involved the occult, no matter what he was claiming, whether he was claiming Druidism, whether he was claiming Wicca, he openly admitted that he was familiar with Aleister Crowley. And he admitted things on that stand that you wouldn't know unless you've read Aleister Crowley's works. You know, this is not just generalized information you find in 1994.
Please state your name for the court.
Damian Wayne Eccles.
Why did you change your name?
I was very involved in the Catholic Church, and we were going over different names of the saints. St. Michael's was where I went to church at. And we heard about this guy from the Hawaiian Islands, Father Damien, that took care of lepers until he finally caught the disease himself and died.
Was that the reason you chose Damien as your first name?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Did the choosing of the name Damien have anything to do with any type of horror movies, Satanism, cultism, any of that nature?
Nothing whatsoever.
Immediately when he got released from prison, he was surrounded by celebrities and he was surrounded by occultists. And he was diving right into the deep end when it came to this stuff. I have no doubt that he's been pulled in deeper. When he was released from prison, maybe he was just a Wiccan, okay? And I don't say that lightly, just a Wiccan, but in comparison to the left-hand path, darker stuff that it seems that he's involved in now, no doubt if Damian Eccles is doing rituals, he believes that he can manipulate, okay, this world through summoning and sending demons, okay, getting power, appeasing demons,